Hey everyone, so glad to have you back for another episode of Off the Chain. Today I'm super excited to have a buddy of mine, Ben Simpson from Collective Shift, join us, mate. Good to see you.
Thanks for having me, man. Straight off the plane, straight in the pod. I'm excited.
Yeah, it's worked out well. We've got dinner and beers lined up.
Oh man,
too.
I'm getting to beers and dinner.
Getting the full Melbourne treatment.
Yeah, man.
AO tomorrow as well.
Yeah, I got a corporate box there, which I'm super excited about. I've only wandered through there once, and like I respect tennis. But I feel as though like in person it's a whole other level, so I'm super pumped. And I mean, free beers.
They put a good show on there too.
Yeah. It's free beers, free food. I mean, it always makes it.
There's lots of activations, and they put a really good show on. So
yeah.
no wonder why they get close to 1 million people through.
It's insane, dude. Like they're killing it. I mean, like I think it goes to show how much they're putting into the AI art ball, right? Like they've got a full-time Web3. Well, they got Ridley. I'm not sure if Ridley's got a team, but like they're obviously investing into a bunch of different stuff.
There's lots of them there.
Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah.
Mate, so give the people a little bit of a background on yourself as far back as you want to go, to give them a bit of context on who you are and what's brought you here.
So my background, entrepreneur my whole life. I'm a big sports fan. So my first real business was a sportswear apparel business. I started when I was 15. We manufactured sports uniforms in China and Pakistan and sold them for sporting teams in Tassie.
Nice.
So I started that when I was 15. I was a semi-professional basketball referee at the time, so that sort of helped me get my foot in the door. Grew that to mid six figures. By the time I was 17, convinced mum and dad to let me quit school because I hated it. It wasn't for me. Thanks, mum and dad. Got that through. This wasn't for me, man. I just love building stuff, selling stuff, like entrepreneurship, just out there hustling, and like school just wasn't giving me what I needed. So mum and dad let me quit school. They said you need to basically earn this income and pay board by this time. Was able to tick that off. We grew that business to sort of mid six figures, and then it was only a couple of months after I'd left school though, I discovered this thing called Bitcoin, and a friend introduced it to me, and he basically sent me, I remember we were out for lunch and he sent me $100 on Coinbase, and I remember just going like, what the fuck just happened? Like I was just like, because one of the biggest problems we had at that business at the time was international transfers.
Of course.
So I was trying to send Australian dollars like 10, 20, 30 grand a month to China. And it was taking ages, like it'd be a massive fee.
This is before things like LX as well.
Yeah, it was before all that.
All just bank to bank.
It was just
Swift codes.
It was Swift codes, man. The codes would be wrong. The bank would dispute the transaction. They'd want to know all the and then it'd take weeks for the garments to arrive. Clients would be shitty, so it was just awful. And then when I was sitting there, I was like, "Well, you just sent me what just went on there? Like, how did that happen? How did that happen without a bank?" So that sent me down the rabbit hole of like questioning. First of all, everything life, man, I was like, what have I been taught up with? But literally, man, I'm like, what the government can print money at any time? Like, why is that $20 note then worth what it is? What do you mean they can just like literally print money out of thin air? What do you mean like the Australian dollar has slowly declined purchasing power over time? What do you mean that the cost of living goes up and then wages stay stagnant? I'm like, does anyone know what's going on here? Like, is this just... I was only 17 at the time, and I was like it was just blowing my mind, right? I was like, Mum and Dad, do you know you're getting robbed? And I think growing up in Tassie, it's it's a bit different. Everyone sort of just goes about their way. You don't really question much. You sort of just do what you think. And I was like, what the fuck? So after 6 months, it took me a long time to wrap my head around Bitcoin, because then you start getting into blockchain and you get into smart contracts, all this sort of stuff. And for me, I wasn't hugely book smart. I was sort of just a hustler entrepreneurship. So I couldn't find many great places online that could actually simplify this space. So I started working for a crypto company. Some of your viewers may remember it was Nuggets News back in the day. I started working there for a couple of years and really got my sort of beak wet in the crypto space and business, and just loved that. Unfortunately, a couple of years ago, the founder sort of lost his way, and I separated with him and started Collective Shift, launched that basically as of October 2020, and that's now my full-time gig. Been on that for a bit over 2 years now. We're a crypto education research platform. We're not an NFT, not a token. We're just a Web 2.5 company, and we're on a mission to sort of educate and help everyday people navigate this space with confidence. So that's been the journey, man.
I love that, mate. It's for people that haven't, this is their first episode. There's a common theme through here where I'm trying to demonstrate different pathways and different ways to get in. And I love that, you can still be entrepreneurial and be smart enough or have the foresight to get a job to learn instead of not making money while you're learning.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like there's people that have the benefit of being able to take considerable time to sort of learn and do things while they're not earning income, but a lot of us don't have that opportunity. So being able to, whether it's humility or whatever it is, to be able to sort of do that and you know, get close to the sun, as they say.
And especially in crypto as well, man. Like I learned so much. Like we rode that business, the highs and the lows. Like, you know, 2017 was insane. We, you know, it was just like explosive growth. We were going around the country doing like events. It was insane. And then 2018 hit and I was like, man, we got no money. Like we got no revenue and we got a shitload of expenses. What are we doing? And that was brutal. Like,
sounds like a few companies this year.
Man, like, yeah. You know, and 2018, you know, that was brutal. Like this is way before NFTs. This is like sort of OG bear market. You know, we'd had that 2017 bubble. Everyone got super pumped, and then it just collapsed, right? And that was at $6,000 Bitcoin USD, and then we went to 3 or 3.5, and it was like it was just a really tough year. But learned a lot about navigating as a business, how to remain lean, how to market. You know, what a good product looks like. Speaking with customers, looking like, because people, it's a lot harder to generate revenue in bear markets. Like Absolutely. We all know, we've seen a lot of sort of businesses go under the last few months, and I have empathy with all the, you know, crypto founders, because it is tough. But I think all of those lessons have been able to, you know, sort of build momentum in a collective shift, and, you know, been really grateful that we just raised a little seed round. Well, not little, but, you know, little for some businesses, big for us.
Congratulations, mate! It's awesome achievement.
Appreciate it, man. So that's really awesome. You know, we've got some good backing there, and we, you know, again, I wouldn't be able to do that without those sort of, you know, the path I've been on. So
100%, no, absolutely, that's cool. It's interesting though. I'm not saying this to try and teach you a lesson, but a lot of people sort of, I think it's important to celebrate wins, but especially now where the challenges do lie through the harder conversations through the bear market, raising capital is the starting point. Like, you get in the game, you know what I mean? Especially like, I think the timing's great for you for sure. So it's interesting, and, you know, how are you sort of seeing the plan? You know, no one ever knows when a bull market's going to return. So what's the plan? You know, obviously leveraging, well, you tell me, but using momentum off this AO
for sure
collaboration,
man.
Which is awesome. And we had a little lunch a couple of months ago where you mentioned a couple of things. So has it changed? What's the go?
It's a good question. I mean, I think one of the things that allowed us to raise capital was probably the fact that we had a product that people were using and were generating revenue to begin with.
It's
handy, right? I think, like, if you look back in 2021 when we had this really fluffy market, there's a lot of capital rolling around, founders could sort of roll up with a white paper and go bang, you know, raising at 30 mil vows with, you know, no product and no revenue, right?
Which is what got a lot of them into trouble.
Exactly, right? If you've got a shitload of capital and you don't really have a product, you don't make those tougher decisions because you've just got money, you just throw money at it, right?
Everyone's Oprah.
Yeah. So, like, in a bear market, you've got to be more lean and you don't have as much capital to work with. So I think that's been one of the benefits that took us on, and, you know, raising capital in a bear market has its pros and cons, but we were pretty confident with the product we had and the opportunities that were sort of lie ahead. So we just signed a deal with the Australian Open, which we're super pumped about. So they've just bought 6,000 memberships, which is huge for us, like really exciting. And it's our first real Web3 integration. So AO holders can connect their wallet. And we're actually, as of recording, going live tomorrow. We soft launched it today, and there's already people in there like connecting their MetaMask and getting into the platform. And it's super cool, man. So really exciting on that front. And really, like, hopefully the first of many Web2 brands that we can help on board there, whether it be sports fans or Web2 folk into the Web3 space, and using Collective Shift to do that's, you know, it's amazing. It's really cool to see.
No, it is so cool. It's you know, I know you're a big fan, and everyone knows I am of Gary Vee. What he did from an education perspective at scale was incredible, and still is. And I think that, you know, the content that they've created, like, if they knew you guys were around at that time, like plugging in like that, like, you know what I mean? Like, it's, I always think about those sort of things, and, you know, I'm even thinking for our events, because we're so focused on bringing new crew into there, you know, how we can potentially leverage it to to help people sort of get that grassroots understanding, because there is in Web3 land, there is an issue that we need to continuously talk about, which is this echo chamber and the fact that everyone talks about we need more people coming in, but there's not much action to back up the words.
Dude, this is like, I've been thinking about this a lot recently, like in the Web3 space. Unfortunately, my opinion anyway, is there is a lot of this and not like much this. There's a lot of talk from a lot of people, but I'm like, let's just get back to business. Like, what are we doing here? What are we building? Who's in the weeds?
What problems are we solving?
What are we building? Exactly. And I think that's been a problem for a lot of maybe early stage crypto businesses, is even the work that we've been doing, we've been building products that actually isn't really solving a problem. Like, people don't have that problem. People might have an inkling that may want it in the crypto space, but like, to really bring in and solve problems in the real world outside of crypto, we got to build wicked products, right? And those experiences got to be really like sound, because we're competing against like, I think, for example, what Starbucks did and what Reddit did with their digital collectibles, man, like, I think they nailed it. They didn't talk about NFTs, they didn't talk about whatever. They solved a problem. They have a huge, membership rewards model, Starbucks, and they came in and nailed it with this technology that we all know is going to be huge, and they just killed the execution. Same with Reddit. And that's where we've got to get to, I think, to be able to really compete with some of these bigger brands and build good businesses, is solve actual problems that people need solving and they're willing to, pay for it.
100%. I think that's probably some of the reasons why, some of these brands are approaching some of the more successful Web3 players that have done well. Obviously there's clearly a loyal fan base at some of them. Like, first comes to mind, Deadfellas. From like a brand integration perspective and just knowledge of the space. Web2 brands like Wrangler obviously want to learn how they can, firstly build IP like that, but how they can build a loyal fan base like that using the technology. So there's definitely, I look at things in two ways. And I try and make it simple. I know it's not simple, but I try and make it as simple as possible whenever I'm thinking about, just the industry as a whole, or where my place is in there. And I always look at things as, and I was even speaking about it earlier today, Web2 brands that can leverage their existing IP and then leverage the, whether it, want to call it Web 2.5 or leverage the consumer blockchain to improve their offering. Versus brand new Web3 native brands that, the PFP movement's gone, right? Like, people need, like, it has slowed down significantly, but, there needs to be something extremely valuable behind that, if you're going to launch something brand new with no prior, brand behind it. So I think that there's heaps of plays that we'll see continue to come out from these existing brands. I mean, even with what we're doing with, a successful Australian entertainment company that are our business partner, coming out with a digital membership pass, digital access pass.
And I love that. Like, I think to come out with it's like starting a business, right? You and I start a business tomorrow. We're going to come out and then we're going to try and generate $1 million of revenue tomorrow. It's not going to happen. Like, you need to put in the work, you need to build a product, you need to build the following, build the trust, build the community, build the acquisition channels, there's so much that goes into it, right? So I love those models of, like, a business has a great product, they're delivering something of value, and then they come into the Web3 world and they can enhance that delivery through, whether it be NFTs, digital collectibles, whether it be, whatever sort of like, virtual experience that might be. I love that model. But, I think a lot of founders in the Web3 space probably have now been caught out. When you launch in a bull market, a turkey can fly in a hurricane.
Yeah, for sure.
But when the tide goes out, who's left holding the bag?
The other thing is that, not everyone has the luxury of being allowed or have the opportunity to be able to work with an existing brand that's successful or has IP of any significant value to start with. So some of them do start from scratch, and I think we'll see a lot of the tooling come out. You know, it always happens in the bear, right? Even before NFTs are around, the tooling behind the picks and shovels is what sort of comes out. There's some local crew that are building incredible products at the moment. A couple of Melbourne boys that sort of come to mind. I know that they're working on some incredible stuff, and I know that there's more than just them, but I think that we'll see a lot of that stuff that people can plug into. VFriends just launched something incredible on their website for verifying their cold wallets, so you don't actually have to sign anything. It's in layman's terms, they essentially give you a very specific amount of ETH to send, which was like the equivalent of 6 cents or something, and you send it to this particular ETH address, and it knows what amount of ETH it's expecting, and it includes an email, like a Web2 login as well, and then you verify.
That's super cool, man. I think there's that user experience, like, man, even, so we're actually going through that now. We're trying to, like, when we built this AO integration, it's like, okay, like the user experience is still pretty nerve-wracking. Like, you've got to sign your MetaMask, to our site to like connect, right? And not that we're doing anything but just reading to see if you're doing your NFTs. And I'm like, this is a big thing. Like, this is very serious. We need to be very careful about how the messaging is, and make people very clear about what this signing does and doesn't do. But it's crazy to think that MetaMask really has a foothold on that Web3 integration stuff right now. So I think what Gary's doing there, I haven't seen it specifically, but that sounds great. Like, that real user experience. I always use Sportsbet as the example. Anyone that's used Sportsbet before, like, you're punting, right? You press 3 buttons and you got to bet on. Like, it's just like bang, 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 you deposit, bang, bang, bang. Like, they have got that down to a T. That's where I think we need to get to, and using that user experience. Like, it's probably not an area we have invested too much in this space just yet. It's all about the tech. For now, it's like, now we need to get back on the front end, I think.
Yeah, I think so. Look, obviously, what they've done, it doesn't allow people to transact, which is another problem entirely on its own, especially when you start talking about hardware wallets and stuff. And I'm sure you guys cover a bit of that in your content too. But I think it's definitely a step forward that people can learn from, because it's literally even got that. It's very basic, but it's got that copy function. Nice. You literally just send it over, and I literally did it in a couple of seconds.
That's wicked.
But I wanted to sort of jump onto, where I mentioned earlier, like with our events, we're very much focused on bringing new people into the space by, and you mentioned it before, by not talking about the technology and talking about things they already know. With our upcoming event, it's music, art, gaming, and collectibles. And also, I mean, with an event, we've got the luxury of being able to put on entertainment and stuff like that. Just in general conversation, I think removing the mystique behind it, and I always use the example of no one needs to know how Apple Pay works. They just need to know that it's safe and it works.
100%,
Right? So it goes back to that, and like with some of how you guys are educating people, like, how are you looking at that, and what are you finding from the feedback that you're getting?
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of the NFTs specifically that have lost their value this year is probably because of those that don't necessarily do that much. You know what I mean? Like, and I hate to keep bringing back the AO, but it's probably the first real thing I've seen where, like, for example, you get a 7-day ground pass. Like, that's insane, right? It's like a membership, and you get a bunch of other sort of things alongside it. I think, Cricket Australia launched their own cricket collectibles. I think that's kind of exciting. I think that idea of like moving those digital collectibles into games is really cool as well. Like, the play to earn, I think, had its moment a couple of years ago with Axie Infinity and stuff. But I think we think that this year we're going to start to see some actual, like, real cool games that people are going to want to play.
Well, they've had a couple of years now to build them, right?
It's time to shine now, right? Yeah. Like Illuvium, for one, there's an Australian project that we've sort of got our eyes on, where you're able to take those digital collectibles and maybe move them around games. It might be in real, world experiences. And I think sports is a great example. Like physical collectibles is the biggest in, sports, right? Baseball cards, NBA cards, whatever. I think those moving into the digital world, I think, is really cool. I'm personally not like the NBL launched theirs. I'm not a huge fan of that right now. Like, I'm not a massive fan of these, like, own these moments.
Yeah.
Especially like, you know, replays and stuff. Like, I'm not sure if that's it. I think there's still probably a little bit of, you know, working out to do there, but like, man, I think the intersection of sports, gaming, and, you know, ownership of characters or collectibles is, you know, what I'm really excited about. Yeah.
You think that's the, I hate to say Trojan horse, but sort of what it is. That's I guess the entry point.
I think so. It's fascinating. Like the AO this year, like I would have thought there'd be more Web2 people probably coming in on that latest mint, but from what I've seen, like I think there's still this idea of NFTs as scary or they're dead or like, you know, that, you know what I mean? Like, so what is it that's going to bring non-crypto people in this space? I think it's like, it's like, I think sport is like one of the biggest.
And Shopify sites to buy the NFT instead of ETH.
100%, man.
You know?
Like, yeah, let's use our debit card to begin with, right? Like, let's get off the ground. You know, why do we need to go through MetaMask and buy ETH and, you know, because it's scary still for a lot of people.
Do it for them in the background.
Yeah, man.
Just collect fiat. Make it simple.
Let's make it easy. You know, why can't I buy that NFT for $100 using my Visa and then it goes to my MetaMask?
I did that. Well, I don't want to talk about what the Chicago Bulls did to me, but they did very limited amounts in each of their releases through Shopify.
Yeah.
At about midnight, of course,
Yeah.
as we all copped during that period. They had initial utility.
Yeah.
But now they're just collectibles. Like,
Gotcha.
Who knows? Like, they might end up like they're now on Flow, and like they'll get them to a place where you can actually do something with them at some point. But for now, they're like literally just on a website doing nothing. Yeah. But they did a Shopify site, and I think
cool,
like it's a big, like obviously it's an enormous brand. They did there was a big write up about it, and like the friction, there was no friction because we're so used to it. Like, it literally even used what's it called? I think it's called the shop. There's like an app built into Shopify.
Like a plugin?
Yeah, that remembers your information. So because cool, it was like first in, best dressed, like this, anyone that already had that info, you literally click it and you won. So the experience was familiar. It was exactly the same way.
And consumers expect that now. Like we as consumers, we expect things fast and easy. Uber Eats, Uber. Man, like if I order an Uber and it's going to take like 7 minutes to arrive, I'm like cancelling that thing. I'm like going elsewhere. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like we expect things to be like now. The velocity of these Web2 brands, whether it be delivery apps or Uber apps or whatever, like it is increased at the speed that we want the result. And I think we need to make, and this is something we've learned a lot through, like whether it be our marketing or acquisition or whatever it is, like things need to be, especially in Web3, need to be so simple for people to understand. And I think there's a lot of different brands that maybe that I have seen, I won't name names, but I have seen their marketing that's still quite technical, it's quite difficult to understand. Yep. Like if you show that to someone on the street, they're going to go, what the fuck are you talking about? You know? And I think that's why the likes of Starbucks and Reddit have probably executed that so well, is because
it's so familiar.
It doesn't matter, you know? It doesn't matter what the tech is, it doesn't matter all that nonsense. It's like, here's your rewards app.
It's the Henry Ford model. You don't frighten people by thinking that you're taking their horses away from them. You just give them faster horses.
Yes, literally. So
it's exactly what it is. The familiarity is like it's been proven time and time again for since he did it essentially.
Exactly. The other thing I think too that's probably affecting the industry right now is just all the chaos that went on last year, like the complete bloodbath that was like FTX and Celsius and BlockFi. Like I know so many people that had money in crypto and they stored it in BlockFi or Celsius, or they had money in FTX, or they had money in UST. Like so many people have been burnt.
Yeah, it's crazy.
And for those people, if I always say in crypto, everyone's got their tuition fee. You're gonna pay your tuition fee in a rug pull or a scam, or it's always gonna happen, right? Yeah. But if it's big enough that it completely wipes you out, or you go, no, I'm never doing this again, that's harmful on the industry. And I think there was a lot of people that probably went through that last year that lost a considerable amount of money.
Yeah.
And looking on this space going, fuck no, like I'm not going, like I don't care
what did I gain from that?
Yeah, literally, like you guys hurt me.
And I'll never make that back.
Yeah. So that's going to take a long time to repair, I think.
For sure. No, I completely agree with that. No, it's interesting. It's a tough one. It's the whole unlock of getting people familiar with something and then building trust. It does take longer it is taking longer with this technology because yes, there were and there still are credit card scams, but there probably weren't scenarios, during that time when people were scared to put their credit card information into a website where one singular person or group could take billions away from a group of people.
Dude.
And it's real. I think that's like, the credit card piece got integrated into society so much faster because there weren't as many newsworthy, like there were those people that were like siphoned, like walking around with those scanners, being able to scan your phone or your chip.
Yeah.
Like that made the news, but it wasn't one single attack. Like people felt like they weren't as under threat.
Yeah.
In those instances.
And also like people don't know what the alternative is. Like they see
spot on
FTX blow up, they're like, oh, crypto's like, it's all a scam.
Yep.
You don't know who to trust anymore, right? Like if you have ever been scammed before, like I bought an NFT scam before, you feel like defeated, you feel embarrassed. You're like, and it's not.
No one can help you.
No one can help you.
It's not reversible.
It's not. It's gone, and you got no one to talk to because you don't want to talk about it in the moment. You know what I mean? Like, and you're like, fuck this. Like, I'm out.
Yeah.
It's just the reality of it. So that's going to hurt us, I think, a little bit. But I mean, honestly, I think what we'll bring back is honestly, unfortunately, it's speculation. It's prices. As prices start to go up again, people like I've seen in the last 2 weeks. If you go back to December or November, it was super bearish. It was like we're sitting at 16,000 BTC, and people were like, we're going to 12. All of a sudden, a week later, we're sitting at 21, and people are like, oh, we've got FOMO again. Have we missed the boat? And I think what we've seen recently with the prices, like, we're probably just retraced back to like a place where we probably should have been to begin with.
To say, without the disaster.
Without the disaster, right?
Without where we would have been, yeah.
We had a heap of shorts that were just liquidated. So $500 million worth of shorts, BTC shorts were liquidated on the weekend, just gone. Biggest in nearly 2 years. So there was a heap of people bearish. And we got some good macro news with the CPI inflation. And then all of a sudden, a bit of positive news have wiped out all those liquidations. Bitcoin slingshots at 21. And maybe we sit there for a little while, right? And people were starting to think, well, okay, ease back up to 1500. It's like, oh, okay, maybe crypto's not dead, And that's how we start to, come back out of this market. So, yeah, I do think speculation and prices is that's why NFT bubble happened like 12, 18 months ago, right? It was just like insane growth. And
you look at the gambling industry, how long it's been around for and how much popular it continues to get.
Yeah.
It's human nature, right?
Exactly.
People can't help themselves.
They love it, especially Aussies.
Oh, yeah. Aussies, we've got a big problem with that stuff. So, mate, how would you... Let's talk about, like, the people that are watching that they haven't been stung that bad and they're still in there for good reasons, trying to get more people in. Yep. How do you think they should approach sort of, the conversations and you do it quite well from a just stating the facts perspective. How would you say, when next time they're at the family gathering or their mates are hitting them up because they know they're in the space, how do they approach the conversations of sort of getting people on board?
It's a good question. I mean, I'm going to answer this twofold. I think there's some people that just can't be convinced or won't want to be convinced.
Totally.
And I actively avoid this conversation. I actually had one at Christmas, family friend, whatever, came up to me and basically said, NFTs, it's all a joke, is it? Like, it's all a scam, it's all a Ponzi. And I was like, look, you're wrong,
But that's your opinion.
Feel free to have that opinion. God be with you. But I'm not having this conversation.
CBF.
Like if you're open to, and she was visibly not interested in whatever I had to say. If she was like, do you want to have, like, if she asked me, hey, like, this is my opinion, like, prove me wrong. I was like, I'm all for it. But for me, like, let's use our energy elsewhere. Those people that are open to it, I just go back to things that they're going to understand. One, I would say, like, the Australian Open. If you buy an Australian Open NFT, you get a 7-day ground pass. Oh, okay. Like, what? How does that work? Well, it's a membership.
Intrinsic value.
It actually gets you something, right?
Yeah.
Or I go to the Starbucks, analogy. Or I go to the Reddit analogy, right? That's one. The other one is I go straight to Bitcoin, and I'm like, when's the last time you got a pay rise? Okay, great. How much did your groceries cost last trip versus a trip 2 years ago? Has it got more? Oh, great. Okay. Do we know why? Well, there's this thing called, like, inflation, and money gets printed every year, and you have no control of that. So the money in your bank, what it can purchase declines every year. And you may own a house, and yes, you know the price of your house has gone up, but guess what? When you go and sell that house, the price of the house next door is also the same price. It's not like you've gotten much benefit, right? So why is that? I talk about like money and why it's worth what it is and how governments have control. And then I talk about the alternative of a limited supply asset that continues to grow in adoption. It's recently hit all-time high number of unique addresses that own more than 0.001 of Bitcoin. More people across the world are using it. We're using it as a currency, store of value. We've got major players involved now that buying and holding their balance sheet. Like, this thing is inevitable. Some shops don't even accept cash anymore. So Bitcoin has a very high probability that it will succeed. And if it does succeed, the upside of your investment is insane. If we're wrong, okay, right, you lose your investment that, and by the way, don't invest more than you're willing to lose. So put that away. And like, if you lose it, oh, that sucks. But if it actually happens, what we think would happen, the intrinsic upside is insane. So it's like, it's a no-brainer in my eyes.
For sure. Do you think the news today with NAB and their stablecoin, do you think that helps the conversation?
Yeah, it's fascinating. I think like the CBDC will be coming out this year, the Australian Central Bank digital currency. I think it shows that the banks know that this is here, but the way I see it is they are just creating their own currencies to compete against actual cryptocurrencies. Like, these are just centralized stable currencies. Stablecoins. It definitely does spark a conversation, but now we've got us Web3 people that know what's going on here. We got a bigger job now to actually explain
the difference. Don't get sucked in.
The NAB stablecoin is not a Bitcoin. It's not a scam. It's just their digital version of the currency. But this is not Bitcoin. It's not Ethereum, and it's not.
You literally might as well keep your money in the bank.
Literally,
it's the same thing.
It's the same thing, but they have more control. Because they can settle the transaction, they're going to have minting abilities. They're going to be able to it's a dream for the bank, and that's why the CBDC is coming. But it's not decentralized. It's not limited supply. It's not all these things that we know why we buy Bitcoin, right? So I think we've just got even more job now to explain. It's just another thing we need to separate.
For sure. Let's wrap up on we've heard about your career path, the way you sort of made it in, and the practical decisions that you made to get to where you are now. What would you say to someone that's still in a stable job in let's say Web2?
Yep.
Thinking of making their way into Web3.
Yeah, it's tough. I think in this environment, I think even good businesses are struggling. Like, we're seeing layoffs across the board. Like, it's certainly a tough time. But I think tinker, learn, and just go deep and just question everything. And just that's what the first 6 months before I started in crypto was like 6 months of just learning. I didn't buy anything. I was just like, let's just learn what the hell's going on here. And just follow your nose and follow what you're most passionate about. I absolutely love what I do. I know you do, and I know a lot of people in Web3 do. Like, make sure you do it for the right reasons. Don't do it because you think you will like it or because you like the way it looks for you. I've caught in that trap before, trying to be someone who I'm not because I think I want to be that person. You know what I mean?
Yeah, completely got it.
I think we've all been there. So I think it's following your nose, finding what you're interested in, and then just following that passion. And guess what? If you love it, well, maybe you do need to take a step back in your day job. Maybe you need to go back to 4 days a week. Maybe it's going to earn you less money in the short term, but if you love what you do, for me anyway, I'd much prefer to do that than maybe sit in a job that I don't love.
A couple of less movies a week, you'll find time to make your way into
exactly, it. Man. Yeah, exactly. And setting up business now, like, the way I look at it is like you're just getting the surfboard ready before that wave hits, right?
For sure.
It's much harder.
And you got time to think as well when things are manic and
crazy.
The market goes nuts. If you haven't experienced it before, it's
there'll be no
wild.
There'll be no time for podcasts and bull market.
That's why I'm doing so many things.
Pre-recorded.
No one will take my calls, mate. I'll be too busy. Mate, time's absolutely flown. I appreciate your time.
Yeah, no worries, man.
Beer tonight. Thank you so much for joining. Let us know what you thought. Hit up Benny. Go and check out Collective Shift, and good luck with all your endeavors and what you're planning to do in Web3, and keep the positivity going. Cheers.
Thanks, guys.
I really hope you've been enjoying Off the Chain so far. No matter how you're consuming this content, please leave your feedback either through the content platform itself or find me on Twitter at offthechainweb3. Cheers for your support. Thanks a lot.